Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Connections by Talent Store. Today we have Valentino Lee, who is a trainer who I've worked with many times over the last few years. So I'm very happy to have you part of the show today, just to get your
Thank you.
perspective on what you see in the L&D space in Malaysia. So I mean, Tino, right? Everyone calls you Tino instead of Valentino.
Yeah.
Just give me some of your background because I know you didn't start off as a trainer, right? I think you were in sales. Just for the perspective of the audience, how did you get started and how did your journey lead you to be a trainer, right? Or a trainer in the space.
Okay. Thank you, Arun, and thank you for having me this morning.
Sure.
One of the things in actual fact, it's how I jump into it is it's actually by chance.
Okay.
I've always been involved in sales, and I've been doing a lot of sales. I even worked in Brunei as a warehouse manager, but also involved in sales and all this. Then I went for my studies, came back, and I was working in HR, human
Yeah.
resources, in the areas of common band, industrial relations, recruitments, those kind of areas.
Okay.
Then in 1998, of course, the economic downturn, and I had a very difficult job of telling people that you don't have a job.
Okay.
So we had to churn out letters and give out letters and stuff like that. So it was really painful for me. And I said, this is not something I really want. I don't want to. I like recruiting people, but I don't like to put people out of work. So it's not
Okay.
a really nice thing to do. Then I stumbled upon a sales and marketing job in an education industry,
Okay.
and for 4 years I was doing recruitment of students for the university or for the
Sure.
college.
Yeah.
One fine day, one of my mentor actually came up to me one day and said, "You know what? Why don't you come and join me as a business development guy? Since you like sales, do sales, but in the line of learning and development,
Right.
professional education." I said, "Okay, yeah, let's give that a try." And that's 22 years since then that I've been
All right.
involved in this industry, moving from sales into facilitating. So I've been
Cool.
facilitating for about easily 20 years now. Yeah,
Wow.
but being
Okay.
involved in the industry for a long time. So that's
Right.
how I stumbled upon it, and I decided to stay. All credit goes to my mentor, Peter Ling. He was the one who taught me and got me into all these things.
Nice. I mean, so what was your, today I know you do a lot of soft skill development work.
Yeah.
What was your background, and how did that help you kind of refine your focus area, right? Because training is quite general, there's a lot that you can do.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, but was it really you playing to your strengths and just going from that sales BD perspective and then taking those kind of skill sets and trying to train others?
Yes, that's part and parcel of it. The experience in the areas of sales is actually very important for you to
Yeah.
run the program right there, right? But along the way, I've always held a P&L portfolio. So I've
Right.
always been responsible for profit, revenue, sales, and all this. And I had a team of people as well. So
Sure.
I manage a group of people. Throughout my career, I've always been managing people. And that helps me when I facilitate leadership programs because of the years of experience dealing with different types of people, as you know,
Yep.
managing change, managing performance. So that along the way has helped very much in the way that I facilitate the program, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense for you to run a program when you doesn't have the experience and you have all the
Sure.
theory in your head, right? So
Yeah.
you can't really relate it, and you can't really relate it to the participants as they are, you know, sitting down and listening to you. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, you said you started like nearly 20 years back, right? How has it evolved? Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure things have changed dramatically over the last 20
Yeah.
years. But from
Yes.
your perspective, from the participants that you have engaged with over the last 20 years, do you see a huge change from those years to now, right? Is there anything significant?
Yeah. The old school of thought in terms of training has always been like, people, leaders would think, or company owners would think that why would I want to train my people? Because if I train them, they go someplace else.
Sure.
Then I waste my money training these people, right? And
Mm,
they're going to go away anyway. So I might as well make the full use of them while they're here. No point sending them for training.
sure.
Then the second thought that people have about training is, I'm not good. That's why I get sent to training,
Mm,
right? And that has always been the challenge for a lot of facilitators back in those days.
Okay.
And people think that training is a waste of time. The participant think that, I'd rather be out there doing my work than be sitting here in this room. Stephen Covey says, sharpen your saw, right? For them, it's like, I don't need that. I need to bring in the money. I need to, earn some money so I can bring home to the family.
Sure.
So there's always been a challenge in getting people to be engaged in a program, getting people to understand that their participation is important. It's also important for them to be learning than just always, going out there and just cutting down trees in that sense.
Okay.
So what has evolved over the years is that people now and companies now realize that, if I don't train them and they stay on in my organization and they're not as sharp and not as good as what I expect them to be, then I am actually losing out on potentials of these people.
Sure.
Right? So companies now has now evolved to a point where many companies now has started to have an L&D department to look into the learning and development. So it's not just now a little small section of HR, of human resources. Now it has become a full-blown department in human resources.
That's true.
Yeah. And
I mean,
even, sorry, go ahead.
no, I mean, from my perspective, it was the total opposite, right? I came from GE, and learning and development, and was actually a signal that you were doing quite well. Like, so if you got to go for learning and development, it was like a positive note, like, oh, you fantastic, man! I get to go to this,
Yes.
to this L&D program. So my perspective, maybe the last 10 years, was the opposite, that it was a signal of you were doing something right. So we want to invest a little bit more in you to get the best out of you, right? But you're saying initially it started the other way around, that it may be a signal of poor performance.
Yeah. It's the signal of poor performance is more from the participants themselves. Okay.
Okay.
And also from the company side is always, why would I want to train you when you're going to go away anyway, right?
Right.
And there are also many people, many organizations or leaders would think that, there's no point. Why waste time in this area?
Sure. Yeah.
10 years ago, like when you said you went into G, that was where I think round about in my 20 plus years in this line, that's where the turnaround point started to come in actual fact. And you start to see organizations spending more time and spending more effort and money into developing, their people. Right?
Yeah.
And the message was much clearer then than in the past, where the message is always you get sent for training because you're not good in this area. That's why I send you for training. But the message was not sent very clearly that yes, you need to develop your competencies in this area, and we are helping you to develop these competencies by sending you for this training. Right?
Sure.
Today people are being sent for training because, like you said, you're good and I want to develop you even more. I see potential in you. I want to develop you even more.
Yeah.
So the message now is a lot clearer for participants who come in. But mind you, I've done so many trainings in this past years. There are still participants who come in and say, actually, I don't want to be here. I get sent here because I have no choice. And we still get it today. We still get people coming in and telling me that. So, the message that has been sent is still not clear for a lot of people. So organization, like you mentioned, GE is very clear about their objective of this L&D department.
Sure.
We bring you in because we want to develop your competencies and develop your potential. There are still a lot of other smaller companies that don't know how to carry the message.
I mean, I do agree with you. I think even when we speak to a lot of SMEs, even though they may be contributing, because obviously in Malaysia it's mandatory to contribute if you're above a certain size, but yeah, a lot of them don't utilize that funding, right? And it kind of goes to waste. I guess they look at it as a tax on running a business rather than like a prepayment for L&D. But we tend to see that a little bit more with SMEs versus MNCs and GLCs. I think they have the big teams, the big L&D teams that can really hone in on the messaging and kind of push it forward. And so, is it your experience as well, seeing that mainly in your SME categories versus your bigger organizations?
Yes. Yeah. The bigger organizations, as you mentioned, the bigger organizations are more in tune with what's happening and what needs to be done, right?
Okay.
It's not just the fact that they are contributing to HRDF or
Yeah.
using the funds from there.
Yeah.
It's not so much of that. But it's also the HR, typically HR, generally HR has always been seen as a backroom kind
Yeah.
of function, right?
Yes.
Today, again, it's very different now. It's more forward. So HR in the areas of learning and development is actually helping the business to develop or to bring in, to make it even bigger, to grow the organization in terms of the areas of competencies and bringing in revenue. So HR in learning and development is actually now contributing to the outcome or to the bottom line of the organization. It's no longer so much of a cost center.
Yeah.
Right? It used to be seen as a cost center. Now it's actually looked at as a more of a revenue center. You know,
Right.
but the measurement now is very different. The KPIs are very different. It's not just about running the number of trainings, but it's about getting the outcome from these trainings. What's the return on investment from these trainings?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, that's always been the tough part of L&D, right? I mean,
Yeah.
really quantifying the value of trainings, putting an ROI or a number or a profit contribution to that kind of
Yeah.
session. I'm pretty sure you've come across this question a ton of times by the people, companies that you serve. So how have you gone about, addressing that? Because to me, it's still a very big question mark that exists in the space, right? How do you
Yes.
quantify results?
It's, yes, like you said, it's very hard to quantify that. But if you look at the measurements of how big your organization is growing, the size of your organization, the rate of
Yeah,
the growth
yeah,
of your organization, and as well as the revenue in terms of that, right?
yeah,
So it's like before and after kind of situation, and then now you start setting target, as
yeah,
part and parcel of not just running the number of trainings, but how does this training contribute to the outcome, right? So there's always ways to measure it,
sure.
but then again, it's a little bit difficult to quantify. But there's always, if you look at the way to measure it, it's based on performance, is based on size, and again based on revenue.
Correct. I mean, the way I would look at it, it's like it's a kind of an equation, right? And L&D is just one function in that equation.
Mm.
I mean, it's difficult to pinpoint exactly how L&D contributes to the overall revenue growth of a company, but I think indirectly there are ways we can measure it.
Yeah.
And I mean, the next thing I really want to know is, I think you said a couple of minutes back that some participants just still come with that mindset that I have to be here because somebody
Yeah.
sent me here.
Yes.
And we know that skills are developing and changing so fast, right?
Mm.
Today you
Mm.
have ChatGPT and you don't really need a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you square it, right? Because if people have this mindset of I don't need to learn, I'm not sure why I'm here, but skills are changing so fast, how does that lead them, throughout their careers, right? It really puts them at a disadvantage compared to the people who are willing to change, adapt. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people who are not so much willing to change, because change to a lot of people is actually very painful and very
Yep.
scary. Right. So and also because the fact that they have gotten into this a level of comfort, now complacency has set in already.
Yep.
And I always tell them this: it's a simple sentence. I said, you either change or you get changed.
Yep.
So if you don't change today, you're gonna get changed by something tomorrow, by somebody or something tomorrow. Right?
Sure.
So just take a simple industry. Take the banking industry, for example.
Yep.
We all know that the customers are now using very different, or they're doing their banking very differently nowadays.
Sure.
Everything is online, right? So you want to
Correct.
pay, you use your QR code or you do whatever.
Yep.
And the branches are getting smaller. That I don't see any branch getting any bigger, or there's more branches coming up and all these things,
Yeah.
because technology has taken away the need for having a branch.
Yeah.
Right. What's going to happen to all the branch managers when more of the branches are going to be closing?
Yep. That's right.
So if they don't change the way that they are thinking, the way that they're moving or working, they're going to be obsolete soon enough.
Yep.
So it's a painful truth, and you just have to give it the way it is. So when I work with them, I just tell them, I said, what do you think is going to happen? So if you don't think about change and you still think that whatever you are doing is still valid, then really take a look at the mirror and say, look at yourself and see how long you're going to last.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, with some of the, I mean, just thinking back, I haven't used a check to make a payment in more than 10 years. I think I don't remember,
Right.
but yeah. I mean, my experience walking into a branch is tends to always be negative, right? So we don't tend to go into branches, but it's a great industry because they tend to also be the ones with the deepest pockets, right? The ones who have the money to spend in L&D.
Yeah.
And with such rapid change in terms of operations and the future of banking, they should be a lot more progressive, lah, which I think they are in Malaysia
They
compared to
are.
other industries. But
In all fairness, they are. In all
yeah,
fairness, they are really progressive.
yeah,
It's the mindset or the people have been in this, some of them have been in the job for like what, 30 years,
yeah,
29, 30 years. And like I said, complacency has set in, and some of them are at this window where I have another couple more years left to go. There's no
I
need
see.
to change.
Yeah.
So that's where the difficulties for a lot of them, for
Okay.
the organization as well.
And yeah, I mean, that's great. I think that definitely we do come across some of those participants, yes, and I think that's just about getting them to that middle ground, to see the value. But like you said, change can be quite a long and painful process.
Yeah.
From your opinion, where do you see L&D specifically in Malaysia going? I know you've kind of worked in this space for the last 20 years, but where do you see the next 5, 6, 7 years, right?
In L&D.
Yeah, in L&D generally. Yeah.
It, I think it's only, I believe that it's only getting better.
Okay.
It will actually start to even grow even more, because over the last 2 years after the pandemic, I
Right.
noticed that there has been a increase in L&D activities,
Okay.
right? And there are organizations that are coming in from overseas into Malaysia itself,
Sure.
to tap into this L&D industry. I think worldwide L&D, if I'm not mistaken, the last research I did was it was like a 1.52 billion dollar kind of industry
Sure.
worldwide, and
Yeah.
that's huge, right? That's
Yeah.
huge. And in Malaysia itself is it's getting bigger and bigger, and that's why you see today, if you look into the number of members in HRDC, the
Yeah.
trading providers, there's over what, 3,000, four
Yeah.
thousand of them. It's
Correct. Yeah.
really,
I think at its peak it was about 7, but then now I think it's about 3 to 4, 5K.
yeah.
Okay. I mean, so you see it getting better. Um, do you see us keeping pace with some of our regional neighbors like Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand? I don't know if you do a lot of work for those kind of countries, but do you see a difference? Has there anything that comes to mind?
No, not really. I've worked with some training providers in Singapore,
Okay.
um, and I've seen how they've grown over the years. And it's just now L&D has come to a point. I see it's still not as rampant yet, but it's
Yep.
starting to see a development of that area where L&D is going to start moving in people into getting their educational degrees, their
Okay.
qualification.
Okay.
So they start with certain level of trainings at a lower level, and then they progress from that level to the next, where they can actually take the points and move into a diploma, for example. And then
Sure.
from that, they move into a degree and then the masters and so on and so forth. So I see that is something that has been done very well in other countries, like in the States.
Okay.
It's done very, very well.
Okay.
In Malaysia, we're starting. I saw that quite a few years back when I was with the education industry, but it's just that organizations are not picking it up.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. They want their people to be certified. It's just that the cost is a little bit high.
Mhm.
So again, they are looking at this cost for one individual can be
Yep.
used for 50
Sure.
other individuals. So that's why they are looking at that. So, but I see that as a trend coming in now.
Okay, cool. I mean, personally, I think on our side as well, we do see a lot more companies, especially in the banking, insurance, but also some of your GLCs taking different formats, like in the
Yeah.
past, gamification, all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it tends to be something that people are getting on the bandwagon a little bit more compared to in the past. But I think also people's expectations have changed, or HR leaders' expectations have changed. I think they are no longer just satisfied with your typical workshop where you just sit up
No.
there and you give a
Yeah.
sermon for one day. So how? I mean, these are last few questions. I mean, how has your facilitation style changed over the years to kind of accommodate some of these changes in the industry?
Well, one of the things that I'm very grateful for is that people are now developing a lot of simulations, business simulations, and all these things. It helps a lot in the facilitation because
Yeah.
it's very hands-on, right?
Yep.
Other than the activities that you run in the class, of course, and the theoretical part of it.
Sure.
For adult learning, it's
Application.
normal for us to really look at 20% theoretical. You,
Yeah.
you try to do too much of theories and people get lost, right?
Yeah.
So 20% of theory, but 80% of hands-on. So part of the hands-on, the simulations, activities that you do, and take back the learning from that. So that has changed over the years, and it has helped me a lot in terms of facility and getting
Cool.
people to understand the topic. Yeah.
Nice. I mean, yeah. So I think we're just about done. I want to thank you, Tino, for spending 20 minutes with us this morning.
Most of
Hopefully our audience got to know you a little bit more, and reach out to Valentino, right? I mean, he's on LinkedIn. He's on, you can reach out to him anytime. And thanks for taking the time and sharing your thoughts, right? I really wanted to just get a different perspective. Sometimes we talk to training providers, and their perspective might be very different from individual or a freelance trainer like yourself, right?
yes.
So thank you again. Any last thoughts? Any other things you want to just leave us with?
I think maybe just this, right? In terms of development and all these things, I
Yeah.
always say this: the definition of insanity or stupidity. I always use the word stupidity is that we keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different results, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of time. It's now even for the smaller organizations like the SMEs and all this to really start looking into doing things a little bit differently. Start looking into your people and helping them to develop their competencies so that they can actually build the business out, because business is all
Yeah.
about people. It's not one individual that builds the business. It's not the product that builds the business. It's the
Yeah.
people, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's just maybe food for thought.
All right. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thanks, Tino. So to everyone else, we're going to be running this kind of episodes every week, and catch you on our next episode. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.